the secret to raising venture capital is long-term relationships. The median relationship age I've had when someone has written me a check is right around 12 months. I've never received money from someone with whom I've had a shorter than 6-month relationship.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host Tyler Kelly. We're at beautiful St. Louis, Missouri tonight. We're at Venture Cafe St. Louis, and if you didn't know, Venture Cafe is the largest gathering of entrepreneurs, innovators, disruptors anywhere in the world. So if you're near Venture Cafe City, I encourage you to go check it out. You're going to love it. So tonight we have a very special guest, Blake Marggraff. Blake, excited to have you on the show tonight.
Really grateful to be here.
So Blake graduated from WashU and in 2015 and founded the digital health company Epharmix, based on research around chronic disease management for medically underserved patient populations. And Epharmix has had a lot of great energy and vibes and investing and press. So much like Health X Ventures, Dr. Wally Gilbert, who's a Nobel laureate, X Prize founder Peter Diamandis. Boom, I got that right. Yahoo, Google, people from Google, like just like all over the place. Lots of great funding and advisors, I would assume.
Exactly.
And it's because you're doing some pretty cool stuff, and that's what we're going to find out about tonight. So thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, underserved patient population. So, tell me what does that word mean? Underserved.
Sure. So generally, folks who aren't receiving the quality of healthcare that they should have, not just for medical reasons, but that they should have as well to make sure that their financial impact on the healthcare system is as small as possible. Right. So medically underserved, people generally construe that to mean they're not receiving the care they should have to be healthy. That's true, but really keeping people healthy is a means to a financial end that benefits everybody.
Because the underserved population may cost the healthcare system a lot more.
Boom, exactly right.
Okay.
So I saw in some of your materials that serving these underserved people like adds somewhere in the ballpark of like 40 million to the GDP or something.
Interesting. So that's a really cool stat, and we can dive right into that because in terms of the reason for Epharmix existence and our value, at the end of the day, it's to make the world a better place in a quantitative way. Right. That's why my team and I do what we do for so many hours every day, and I think one really cool way to quantify that impact is the quality adjusted life year. Literally, if I could take someone, wave a magic wand, and have that person live a better, longer life for X years, how much value is that worth? What does that bring to, for instance, this country's GDP? And it turns out that that's pretty well studied. In fact, that's how big pharma companies, which is why we're called Epharmix, because we borrow some good things from pharma. That's why big pharma companies are able to argue for the value of their new standard of care drugs. And digging right into it, if you look at just a handful of the patient populations that Epharmix supports to date, maternal health, so postpartum depression, diabetes, heart failure, COPD, out there with our commercial relationships, we've added tens of millions, well over $40 million to U.S. GDP by helping those patients live better, longer lives.
Wow. And so that was going to be my question, and I think I probably am thinking of the answer. It's because when people are living healthy lives, they can spend more money.
In fact,
is that what it is?
They create more value for the entire economy. Yep, they spend more money. They create value in whatever jobs they have, so that other people make and spend more money as well.
Awesome.
So how did you? I mean, obviously, this quantitative measurement of quality of life is a big driver of what your company does. But how did you come up with the idea to start the company?
Yeah, so let's go back to the very origins of Epharmix. Epharmix was never supposed to be a technology company. It was really just a fun weekend project. And we started by saying, hey, what if for dialysis patients with end-stage renal disease, really tough population, what if we could get them to actually show up to every appointment? Because it turns out that even though they desperately should, many patients skip appointments, wind up hospitalized or worse, right? So we created a text message-based engagement tool And then we did something pretty unique for a tech company, or a would-be tech company. We designed a randomized controlled trial. Take a group of patients, half of them get the technology, half of them receive the regular old standard of care, the same care they've always received. And we did something special. We powered that trial to show a 5% reduction in hospitalizations. In other words, for this first initial population, if we showed a 5% reduction in hospitalization for patients using our stuff, our technology, that would have been a win versus control, right? We wound up showing a 54% reduction in hospitalization. Subsequently, we showed a 75% increase in appointment adherence. We even got 10% of the really tough patients back onto the transplant list. And that's what led us to say, and the rest of my team is much, much, much smarter than I am, but that's what led really the smart folks on my team to say, okay, well, if we can do it for dialysis, why not COPD, diabetes, hypertension, heart failure, depression, substance use? And we stuck with that first clinical, then commercial approach.
So how does this work? You said text-based.
Mm-hmm.
So how does all that work?
Is it still that way?
Yeah. So it is.
Okay.
In fact, one of the reasons that I think we're so successful with our dozens of partners across the country, generally health systems, is we work for absolutely any patient. Not necessarily every patient, but Epharmix, with our text messages, with our phone calls, with our concerned caregiver track, we can work from a technology perspective for anyone, regardless of health literacy. Even if the patient is not literate, we can still get through to them. And if you were a heart failure patient, sorry, bad day, but you have maybe 20, 30 years of life ahead of you where something could go wrong and land you in the hospital on any given day or week. So Epharmix is going to send you questions at a 4th grade reading level, could be via phone call or text message, that say simple things like, Michael, are your legs feeling more swollen today than yesterday? Are you waking up at night struggling for breath? And if you start to decompose, if you start to retain water or do any other number of bad things, then we'll automatically let your care team know so that they can reach out to you and say, hey, let's titrate your meds, let's avoid those brats and beer every Sunday night, but essentially let's keep you healthy. And then we do that for more than 24 disease states now.
So you can prevent a deterioration in somebody's state.
Precisely.
That's great.
It's a lot of fun.
So once you had this idea, like, what was next? Like,
What was next? I very foolishly told my team, engineers, scientists, researchers, doctors, that if we could get a couple more compelling trials off the ground, that I could raise money. I could raise venture capital, hire out the rest of the team that we needed to bring this to market. And they did. They did extremely well, and our product was working really well, which meant that I had to do my bit. And to date, we've pulled in well over $4 million in VC. Some from the Midwest, some from the West Coast, some from Boston. It's been a good mix.
Wow. So 2015, give or take, that's when Epharmix started, right?
Yep.
So you're relatively still, just a few years in.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kind of shift gears and talk about your experience as somebody that's starting their first business, I'm assuming, right?
Mm-hmm. I did start one business before this, grew that to cash flow positive while I was a full-time student, and sold that. And that was actually a business that received an Arch grant, which is St. Louis.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. So you have a little bit of experience in this, and so that's good because my question is, what I want to talk about is like, how does somebody get started?
Yeah.
In like getting the types of contacts that you have in terms of like the VC, the funding.
Yeah.
Like you just hit the streets, you hit the phones.
Yep.
Like, how did you get here?
Yep. It comes down to two things, and neither of them is like a golden key, right? But I think they're both crucial. It's follow through and quantitative goal setting. So meeting folks, raising venture capital. The secret to raising venture capital is long-term relationships. The median relationship age I've had when someone has written me a check is right around 12 months. And for a 3-year-old company, that means, that says a lot. And I've never received money from someone with whom I've had a shorter than 6-month relationship, right? You got to build that trust, the credibility. You've got to show that when you say you're going to send an update every month on the 7th day of the month, you send that update. So that's the raising venture capital side. Lots of other nuance, but at the end of the day, that's it. And that is powered by piece of advice number 2, which is set quantitative goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely, good old acronym. Make sure that you understand the assumptions behind the goals, break those assumptions into things you control and things that you acknowledge are out of your control. And then at the time that you said you were going to complete that goal, check yourself. And if you blew it, if you succeeded, if you just barely hit the goal, figure out why that happened. and use that knowledge to inform future goal setting.
So give me an example of how this worked for you
Absolutely.
in like raising fund.
Sure. So one of the metrics we knew we needed to have before raising venture capital was a certain amount of, startups, you hear the word traction, right? And we defined traction as a few different quantitative metrics, such as a number of active patients and a level of confidence of data showing that our technology actually worked. Right, and we had specific goals for each of those things, and we'd raised some money, just a bit of angel money from the area, and started executing, and made it through the quarter and hit the clinical data goal, and dramatically missed the patient enrollment goal early on, and went back and said, okay, well, here are the assumptions, and it turns out that one of the things that we had very mistakenly assumed was that healthcare providers, our partners, would enroll patients onto Epharmix. Turns out, healthcare is great at doing healthcare and pretty horrible at doing anything that's not healthcare. And that actually fundamentally informed our strategy moving forward.
Well,
it's a great question.
So using your quantitative goal setting, it's not just about the goals, but it's about challenging your assumptions and finding the problems with your thinking to begin with.
That's it. It really is the scientific method. That's it.
St. Louis, you came to WashU. Are you St. Louis born and bred, or you came to St. Louis for WashU?
Yeah, I came to St. Louis for WashU. I traveled out from the Bay Area in California.
Okay, and so that's interesting. And now you're staying in St. Louis, at least for the time being, right?
Yeah.
So the question's why?
Yeah. If there were a better place to be than St. Louis, the team and I would be there. Right, there's a combination of capital, customers, and access to strategic advantages such as research that I think is unparalleled in any other part of the country right now.
Do you think that just has to do with your industry specifically, or is that a little bit broader than your industry?
I know it to be true for healthcare. I think that it's true for several other verticals. Ag tech comes to mind. And part of it as well is where a team starts, especially if that team has a track record of working together. That's wherever that is. That automatically is more likely to be the right spot to start a business.
So you're talking about if there was a better place to do business, you would be there.
Yep.
And I don't know if that thought crossed a lot of like small business owners' minds that, hey, I'm going to move my whole team from a city to another city.
Yeah.
But do you see that as like a practical thing if opportunity was right? Not for you specifically, but just in general.
In general, of course. And some teams, especially some technology companies, need to move to a geography where they can tap into certain types of tech talent. Tech talent is not a uniform thing, right? It's also not homogenous in terms of where expertise areas are in the country. But yeah, no, of course. And a great example, I think, is the deep learning and computer vision side of things, right? It's pretty tough to find the talent you need outside of one of the major hubs in the country right now. But for most software engineering, assuming you have the cash to pay people competitively, you can start just about anywhere now. Let's
say 3 years, like Epharmix, Blake, 3 years from now.
Yeah.
What's the vision?
Yeah. So in healthcare, there's something called the standard of care, right? To illustrate that, if Tyler, you took up smoking, don't do that. But if you took up smoking and went to your doctor and said, "Hey, I smoke," and the doctor does not say, "Tyler, stop smoking. That's stupid," you can sue your doctor.
Wow.
Because the standard of care is for your doctor to say, "Cut it out. That's a horrible idea," which it is. And so far, that's been applied in pharma. It's been applied in lots of different elements of the operational and practice side of medicine. It has not been applied to healthcare technology. So my vision, fundamentally and pretty simply, is to be the standard of care for patient engagement, be the standard of care for the product offering that we have. I want it to be clinically, financially, almost ethically irresponsible not to use Epharmix because it's so well proven to help patients and to make money and create value.
So I'm curious, you're always talking about quantitative impact. So if that, like, you're moving towards that goal, like what is the impact that you can have then?
It's billions of dollars a year. It's billions of dollars a year. So everybody talks about healthcare as, $3 trillion, $12 20-ish% of GDP in the United States, right? It's at a weird tipping point where the incentive structure is, I think, in very clever ways, being shifted toward value and away from essentially do more to make more money. Right, that was the old stuff. Now we're in a world of let's actually do this stuff efficiently and make sure it works. And I think that we're in a unique position to do that. And going back to the concept of the quality adjusted life here, when you help patients who need it, who really truly need it, and you make an impact on the trajectory of their lives, you're doing much more than saving the healthcare industry a few bucks that year. You're benefiting the whole country.
What's the greatest obstacle or challenge in the way for Epharmix, for you, to get to that?
Yeah.
Outside of like user behavior, outside of
the reality that that's also our greatest opportunity, right? There's a truism that I mentioned earlier, which is that healthcare, especially healthcare providers, even the most innovative health systems, are not so great at doing anything other than what they've done for a long time. They're just not. And it's not their fault. That's what they've been designed to do, incentivized to do. So the biggest challenge and also opportunity for Epharmix is to eat up all of those different elements that our customers aren't able to do. Patient engagement is a great example, right? Obviously, Michael, if you had heart failure, you'd love to get those messages. You'd love to engage, be watched, avoid spending money and potentially dying, right? And that's part of what Epharmix enables. But even things down to patient enrollment, advanced reporting and analytics, gap analyses, landscape analyses, and custom predictive model creation, we're going to be the first service-enabled tech company. We're going to wrap our SaaS offering, our software as a service offering, in a beautiful bundle of services that make it more valuable to all of our customers and let us grow faster.
Awesome. So there's more to it than just what you're talking about coming down the line.
Precisely. I cannot blame the chief medical officers, that have been sitting in their chairs for 20 years when they look at all of us young tech folks and essentially say, those whippersnappers, they come in on their white horses thinking they can solve all our problems. They don't know me. That's entirely true. Most of the time, folks like me don't make an effort to know them.
So I want to kind of shift what we're talking about a little bit, less about Epharmix and more about one of the things you said earlier was you were talking about relationships being really important.
Yep.
And that building long-term relationships, like none of your funders were less than 6 months. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about building relationships a little bit from the perspective of entrepreneurs and just talk about good ways to build relationships with people, because I think that's a challenge for a lot of people.
Sure.
They don't know where to start or where to go.
Yeah. The reality is, folks, especially investors, want to help, right? And they want to help because they make money, but that's not the only reason they want to help. So giving folks a chance to help is one of the most underappreciated, underutilized ways to grow. It does take effort, generally in the form of consistency, follow through, and periodic updates. If you're watching, thinking that you have this really cool idea, first, awesome, right? Write it down, reach out to a couple of folks who might have perspective on it, and then send them an update every month where you tell them what you're going to do the next month, how you did versus your goals last month, and 2 or 3 ways they can help. And if you do that for 3 or 4 months in a row, the chances that you succeed skyrocket. It goes from 0.0001% to probably low single-digit percentages, which is not bad in startup world.
B2B, B2B2B, B2B to C?
Yeah.
Or, with the health, are you going directly to health systems? Are you trying to go to consumers to get to the health systems? Like, what's your, how are you getting in the door, I guess?
Definitely.
Because this is such a massive field.
It really
right?
is. It's a massive field. It's a slow-moving field as well. I mean, we're a B2B SaaS company at the end of the day.
Okay.
Of course, there's the second 2C element, because or 2P element, I suppose you could say, going to patients as well, right? But at the end of the day, we're enterprise software.
All right. So how can people in that space learn more about Epharmix? Like, where can they go online, social media, all those good things?
Yeah, and this is where I think you have more experience than just about anyone, right? Is the hardest part in communicating the value of an idea is generally figuring out the right story to tell about the idea. If you can nail the story, then you've created kind of that meme in the philosophical sense, something that people will carry with them, potentially even pass on to other people. And we've tried our darndest to do that. I think we're succeeding. We've created an interactive story that's at try.epharmix.com, which lets anybody play the role of 4 patients under the care of a care manager and then swap into the role of the care manager so they can see and feel how everything works as a patient on Epharmix and as a care manager using Epharmix. And we've thrown cool Easter eggs and stuff in there as well.
Wow.
But that's the best bet.
Awesome.
So what about, obviously Epharmix, but what about you personally as well? Are you on social or things like that?
A little bit, but only a little bit. Definitely LinkedIn. But I truly love buying a cup of coffee for folks who are starting things up. Dedicate about half of every Sunday to doing that. So if anyone's interested in reaching out, I'm a resource.
IRL.
Yeah. Awesome.
In real life.
Love it.
Exactly.
Blake, pleasure.
Hey, Tyler, thanks for the
being on
opportunity.
show.
I really appreciate
this
it.
was
Thanks for
amazing.
doing this. This is a great way
Thank you.
to bring the rubber to the road in cities that need it.
Thank you.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're in St. Louis, visit us on a Thursday night. Details at vincafstl.org. And connect with us on social at We Are Slam or at Venture Cafe STL. Thanks for listening.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams